I'm very pleased to be here. It's great to be kicking off this evening of what looks like an incredible lineup of speakers. And I'm going to accompany my little talk with a bunch of slides. And this is where we hope the technology works in this rather extraordinarily old place. Hey. As Eleanor said, I'm the director of Artichoke, which is a company dedicated to the creation of extraordinary events in public spaces that invent a world that we'd all love to live in. We deal only in the temporary and the ephemeral. We come and go, hoping that the legacy of our work lasts long after the work itself. What you're seeing here is some of the most familiar places that you will know, being London residents, I assume. The Mall, Horse Guards Parade, places that we know are dedicated to events of, as I was told by the man who runs the Royal Parks, events of national significance, Helen. So when I started on my quest to bring this to London, I started in 1999, and as many of you might know who saw it, we delivered it in 2006, and it took all that time to persuade the authorities that this was something that London would welcome, something extraordinarily beautiful, surreal, the idea that a city could be turned into a stage for storytelling, that the public wouldn't mind a disruption to their daily lives of toil, trade and traffic, that the roads were not only for those three things, but were also for the delight, joy, mystification and wonderment that could be created by the incredible company, French company Royal de Luxe, who trade in these incredible productions that bring a magical world to the world that we all know. By that physical transformation of the public landscape, they somehow create in that ephemeral moment when we're all looking at that and saying, am I really here? Is a giant elephant really walking down the street? Is this the Mall? That incredible moment lasts a whole lot longer than anything that we might build and walk past every day. So Artichoke was born of this project. As I say, it took 5 years to negotiate. We worked our way through the Westminster City Council, the GLA, the bomb squad, the emergency planning services, every agency that you can imagine whose job, understandably, is to keep London running, to keep the place moving, to keep the routines of the city going, because look what we all do when the tube breaks down or it rains or whatever we do. We complain about the fact that life isn't normal, isn't possible. But our contention at Artichoke is that our lives are not measured by routines. None of us remember every day that we get out of the tube and walk to work and go to the office and then walk back and do the shopping at lunchtime and come back and pick up the kids and all of those things. That's what we do, but what we remember are the moments, the magical moments when the world stops and everything is different. The elephant was an extraordinary moment for Artichoke. It was our first event, and it's rare for a company to start off with a show that entertains what the BBC alleged was a million people simultaneously. And there are lots and lots of things to say about what we learnt from that experience. But what I learnt was that 6 years of persuading people to do something that they really badly didn't want to do was all about creating not institutional partnerships, because we weren't an institution, we were two people with a shared clipboard and a mobile phone operating out of a coffee shop saying, can we do this? And the answer, of course, was no. Can we stop central London for 4 days? Can we disrupt the traffic? Can you reroute the number 38 bus? Can you do all of these things? And the question would endlessly come back, why would we do this, Helen? And then is it celebrating the entente cordiale? Is it French-English official relations? Does it have any status? Who are you? Do you have any status? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This endless question, why would we do it? And the only answer that we could usefully come up with was, why wouldn't you? And on that basis, we finally made this breakthrough where all of those agencies, all of those men, largely men, suddenly decided that they would rather do it than not do it, that London could flex in this way. And the triumph of it was that all the people came, all the people loved it. They still write to us talking about when we're going to do it again. As a result of which began my interest in the question of public space. Who gets to use it? Who gets to choose? What do we think about it when we think about a city? We think about buildings and spaces. We rarely think about the people that inhabit them as part of the city. We think of them as people flowing through. These slides that you're looking at now are images from Antony Gormley's amazing One Another, where he was offered the commission by the Mayor of London to take one person at a time, 1 hour at a time, for 2,400 hours. And we were given the task by Antony of orchestrating this extraordinarily complicated thing that on the surface had to seem utterly seamless, that nobody should notice that there were issues of health and safety. As you see there, the guy standing 24 feet up in the air on a space 8 feet by 3 feet, for those of you who do old analogue, that it was a listed historic monument, that to get him there we had to put him in a JCB digger that isn't allowed to carry a person, but there was no other way of doing it, that we had to plan these scenarios with all the emergency services, again, weirdly the same old people that we'd done the elephant with, who were saying, but what if? Always this question, but what if? What if somebody decides to shoot him? What if he decides to shoot somebody else? What if he's taken ill? What if he decides that this is the moment to commit suicide? What if? What if? What if? Because we live mired in a world of anxiety where all we think about is the negative possibilities of change. And we would say, we think it'll be okay. Actually, we don't think anybody will want to do those things, but why don't we just try it and see? And this question of what if, how big a risk are we prepared to take? Meanwhile, I would stand on the stairs with the health and safety guys, looking at the lovely lions at the base of Nelson's Column and watching families clamber up, position, I did watch this one day, a 3-year-old on the neck of the lion, climb down to take a photo. No safety net, no what if, no nothing, because it's part of an event of national significance. So one of the things that we do as we interfere with life in the city is disrupt people's expectations, change the way that they think about the world that they live in, and change the way that what they think it's for, who it's for, what's allowed, what's not allowed. So over the course of Antony's project, the aim of Antony's project was to counter the idea that memorialised in Trafalgar Square are lots of military heroes. So it's called the Fourth Plinth, and you've all been to Trafalgar Square, I would guess, yes? So who's on the other 3? Nobody knows? That's sort of the point about our work, that actually the stuff that's commissioned that's called public art, that is permanent, you walk past every day, you don't even notice this, a parrot on top of a bench, you suddenly notice something different is happening and your life is changed for it. We began, therefore, to think about not just London, not just wanting to work in London, but to wanting to work in other spaces. This is the very beautiful Durham Cathedral, which has recently twice been voted Britain's greatest and most loved building. It's a really conservative town, built over 1,000 years ago for defensive purposes to keep people out. It's a lovely, tiny city of 39,000 people. And we decided that it would be a really great place to go to test an idea that I'd had, which was about changing the way the city felt in a moment of wintry darkness. Not a daytime event this time, but something that would change and transform the way the city felt for its people, for visitors or whatever. So we started by commissioning 30 artists to make work that reimagine the architecture. You see the star on the top of the castle, you see the bridges lit, you see a waterfall where there shouldn't be one. And what I've realised through our work is that the imagination of artists is boundless. They see a world that we can't see, us ordinary people. And my job at Artichoke, with our fantastic team, Artichoke's now nearly 20 people, we work to facilitate and imagine what it is that they want. So here you see Durham Cathedral, a big argument with the ecclesiastical authorities about the use of fire and flame in their building. The only answer, of course, when they said, why would we do this, Helen, was, why wouldn't you? And actually, you've been doing it for 1,000 years. These are only candles. So big candles. So we experimented in Durham, and as a result of that, we were invited to go to Derry, Londonderry, as part of the City of Culture celebrations to finish that amazing year in the city where the city used culture to try and bridge some of the differences that existed in the past and to change the way people thought about where they lived and who they were and who they shared those streets with. Anyone who's been up there will know that this is a very common sight. Derry has a completely contested history, contested past. London, in fact, I don't know if any of you know this, but the City of London just down the road owns the walls of Derry, built to keep the marauding Catholics at bay. And the place is still a very much a post-conflict society. This is the Protestant enclave in the centre of the city called the Fountain, and this is the Bogside, where the Republican Catholic community live. So what do? We turn up and we say, do you know what, after dark, we're going to position all these things. These artists are going to be inspired to work in such a way that you are all going to want to come out and explore the streets that maybe you're not familiar with because territorially they don't belong to your tribe or one tribe or another. And so this is the old British Army barracks, which we handed over to a group of 8 primary schools to create an installation where they danced and sang and remade the place, painted rainbows over the top of it. And we heard a woman in the crowd say to her grandchildren, "I'm just so glad that your childhood is so different from mine." We knew that we'd done something really extraordinary. 180,000 people came, and there was no recorded crime those 4 nights. But I wanted to go back because there was a project I wanted to do that really, I wanted to tackle the issue of sectarianism and bonfire burning. Every summer there's a bonfire built. In fact, there are 3,000 bonfires built across the country, built by one community to burn effigies of the people that they hate from the other side. You're looking at a slide of across the hills, which you see the bonfires burning. In July, the Protestant community, and in August, the Catholics. But I knew that across the Atlantic, there was a different kind of burning that was possible. David Best's temples at the Burning Man Festival in the Nevada desert are places of hope, reconciliation, peace, love, understanding, and of letting go the past. So we invited David to come and work with the community in Derry. We spent about 18 months assembling people, unemployed kids from both sides, to come and work together to see if we could build a different kind of sacred space from that which normally exists in the city. This is a picture of David's temples burning, and this is a picture of the workshops that we started running in order that we had these huge sites where people from opposing communities could literally work together and therefore meet, talk, understand that shared experience was possible. David's designs are incredibly intricate, incredibly complicated, and the people involved developed this real sense of pride in what they were able to achieve. His work is all inclusive. This is a local unemployed carpenter called Jack who worked with us. We had kids turning up for work who told us that they never get out of bed before 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but they were there on the doorstep at 8 o'clock in the morning, waiting to be handed a power saw by somebody who looked like a kind of Californian hippie, somebody who was a Californian hippie. He would say, "Hey man, just go up the ladder and saw that one off." And suddenly there was this incredible bond of trust between everybody working on the project. We wanted to build this temple in a space that everybody said we shouldn't, because it wasn't shared space. It was in a bit of a no-go area. It was a bit frightening, kind of wasteland. But all I could think was, it has to go here because it's visible from right across the city. And people will come because it will be so beautiful. And what I began to understand as we carried on with the construction process was that shared space doesn't exist unless you create a reason to share it. This no-go area that was perceived to belong to one community but not another, surrounded by people who were hostile, couldn't become shared unless there was an excuse or a reason why people would go and investigate it. And what you see here is the intricacy of the carvings that were made by the community, David and his crew. And what you see here is what happened. 60,000 people came to leave their memories and mementos, to let go their fears and anger, their grief. They filled it with messages, with mementos of the past with extraordinary little icons, not like the effigies or flags that they burn on their bonfires habitually through the summer. And here you see it rising above the city with the spires of the two other cathedrals in the background. But this was a secular, sacred space that wasn't sectarian in any way. And what you see here is the beginnings of that burning. So open for a week to receive the messages and mementos of all of those who wanted to come. And then 8 people chosen from those who'd worked on it, who set it alight. There was lots of comment about, it's so beautiful, how can you let it go? But I doubt that anybody who was there that night didn't see the point of a moment of real reconciliation with the past, a kind of, it's enough, it's over, let's move on. And 15,000 people stood in silence until the pinnacle fell, at which point they roared, which was so satisfying. It was very, very hot. They backed away a bit. But actually, Artichoke's work, all of it, is about this, what you see in front of you, a way in which we can bring a new, extraordinary and unimagined experience to crowds of people for free in a way that allows them to really re-understand the place that they live, the places that they're familiar with, and see a different kind of world free from the tensions and habits of the past. Thank you.